Welcome back. Today, we're diving into an explainer that breaks down a seriously dark and fascinating supernatural narrative. We're talking eerie, spine-chilling themes of revenge, forbidden knowledge, and the ultimate, crushing price of human connection. We'll be unraveling the legend of the Karna Pishachini, tracking how our protagonist goes from a totally naive, honest guy into, well, something entirely unrecognizable. Listen to this quote straight from our source material. Karna Pishachini is not a power, it's a punishment. Truth isn't bitter, truth makes you alone. Man, that really sets the stage for analysis today, doesn't it? It poses a wild psychological question to all of us. If you could hear the absolute darkest, most hidden secret of everyone in the room with you right now, would you actually want to know? Because as we're going to see, ripping away the comforting illusions of human nature is incredibly dangerous. All right, let's get into part one, love, humiliation, and revenge. So we start out with this guy, Aryan. He's a hardworking, middle-class dude who honestly believes that his love for his girlfriend, Rhea, is enough. But his baseline morality, it gets completely obliterated in a single evening. He shows up at Rhea's house only to find out she's getting engaged to this wealthy tycoon named Vikram. Rhea's dad brutally humiliates Aryan in front of everyone, literally mocking him for not having money while Vikram's friends are laughing and calling him a beggar. And Rhea? She just turns away. In that agonizing moment, Aryan's entire worldview just collapses. He learns a very cruel lesson. Loyalty means absolutely nothing, and only money and power matter. Driven by this blinding, absolute thirst for revenge, Aryan reaches out to a friend, Vishal, who takes him far away from the city and deep into a remote jungle. There, they track down an Agori, a master of dark, supernatural arts, and the Agori offers Aryan this terrifying, forbidden path to unimaginable power. He tells him how to summon the Karna Pishachini. Now, this is a supernatural tantric entity that physically binds itself to the summoner, constantly whispering the world's darkest secrets, stock market shifts, and hidden weaknesses right into their ear. But the Agori makes an explicit warning right up front. She is not a goddess, he says. She is a Pishachini. She will give you everything, but in return, you must surrender your purity and your peace. He's making it crystal clear that this isn't some benevolent spirit. She's demonic. Gaining absolute power over others requires Aryan to make an absolute sacrifice of his own humanity. To gain the world, he literally has to surrender his inner peace forever. Which brings us to part two, the dark art ritual. The source material goes into deep detail about the grueling rules of Ushishta, or impure magic. See, the Pishachini is an entity of decay, so to summon her, you have to match her state. Aryan is forced to lock himself inside a pitch-black, rotting cell. For weeks, he can't bathe, he can't change his clothes, he can't clean himself in any way whatsoever. He has to eat and offer only leftover, impure food. Basically, he is required to physically rot in the dark just to attract this thing. And over the next 21 days, the psychological horror just ramps up intensely. Days 1 through 7 are all about agonizing hunger and total silence. But by day 8, the hallucinations start. He hears invisible creatures crawling on the walls. Day 10 hits, and he feels the maddening sensation of thousands of bugs crawling right under his skin. Finally, on day 15, the temperature plummets. The room fills with a stench of rotting flesh, and he feels a heavy, wet, iron-clawed weight settle right onto his right shoulder. The entity is there. But wait, there is one final, deadly trap to this ritual. The ultimate test. The entity suddenly appears before him as a devastatingly beautiful woman, smelling of sweet flowers, tempting him with lust and unimaginable wealth if he'll just take her as his lover. But Aryan remembers the Agori's warning. If he yields to lust, she'll consume him completely and give him a terrifyingly painful death. So, mustering every ounce of willpower he has left, he binds her power by accepting her only as a mother. With this blood-curdling shriek, the illusion shatters. Aryan survives, but he steps out of that darkness forever changed. The entity is now permanently bound to his right ear. Let's move on to part 3. The eerie awakening. 15. That is exactly the number of days it takes for Aryan to completely turn his life upside down. Using those supernatural whispers constantly feeding him stock market secrets, hidden investments, and the corrupt dealings of billionaires, Aryan builds a massive financial empire and buys a luxury penthouse. Just 2 weeks. It's wild. But with unparalleled wealth comes surgical, ruthless vengeance. The Pishachini starts feeding Aryan the exact devastating weaknesses of his enemies. First up is his so-called friend Vishal, who, it turns out, had secretly plotted to have Aryan killed to steal his land. Aryan uses the Whispers to expose Vishal's thefts from a local gang leader and drops his secret blackmail files for everyone to see. Vishal is ruined instantly. Then, Aryan sets his sights on Vikram, the tycoon who took Rhea. At this huge high society party, Aryan casually walks up and publicly whispers two secrets right into Vikram's ear: a massive 500-crore financial scam and a literal murder that Vikram hid beneath his factory's drainage system 3 years ago. In seconds, Vikram is completely destroyed. That leads us directly into part 4. The Curse of Bitter Truth. We really need to look at the true cost of this revenge. Let's compare Aryan before and after. Before the ritual, he was an honest, hardworking guy who genuinely valued human connection and loyalty. But after, he is ruthless, paranoid, and utterly consumed by filth. Because of the impure nature of the magic he used, he's now physically repulsed by human touch. Sure, he gained the world, but he completely lost his capacity for empathy. The Uchishta magic actually starts consuming him from the inside out. His glamorous new life, it becomes a waking, foul-smelling nightmare. He develops a severe physical repulsion to clean environments and expensive perfumes. He literally has a supernatural compulsion to avoid showering because getting clean makes the entity scream in anger inside his head. And the worst part? He can never, ever sleep. The whispers in his mind are just deafening. While the rest of the city is asleep, he's forced to hear about random murders, terminal illnesses, and the absolute darkest sins happening miles and miles away. He becomes this human receiver for all the world's filth. And then comes the ultimate blow to whatever humanity he has left. A destitute Rhea shows up at his office, crying her eyes out, apologizing, saying she made a terrible mistake. But before Aryan can even feel a single ounce of sympathy, the Pishachini instantly whispers her true, selfish motives to him. She reveals that Vikram kicked Rhea out after losing all his money and that Rhea actually has a bottle of poison in her bag as a backup plan. Even when someone comes to him in tears, the entity's brutal truth ruins any chance of redemption or forgiveness. Aryan realizes right then that every single human interaction is driven by selfish, ugly motives. He can never trust a smile, a tear, or an apology ever again. Now for our final section, Part 5, The Price of Losing Humanity. Unable to function in society, totally unable to look anyone in the eye without seeing a mask, Aryan's massive business empire starts to collapse. He's being driven completely mad by the incessant noise in his head. So, a hollowed-out Aryan abandons his billions and runs back to the jungle. He falls right at the Agori's feet, practically begging him to silence the Pishachini. He is willing to trade all of his newfound wealth just for one single moment of peace. But here's where the source narrative reveals a truly terrifying twist. The Agori just smiles. You see, he never intended to just hand Aryan this incredible power. He was using Aryan as an incubator for the Pishachini. The Agori plans to perform a ritual called Karna. He's going to use a red-hot iron needle to extract the entity's vibrations straight out of Aryan's ear. This process would steal all that absolute knowledge for the Agori, but it would leave Aryan as a deaf, mute, living corpse for the rest of his life. So Aryan is completely paralyzed by a binding spell, with this red-hot needle literally inches from his skin. But then, an unlikely savior steps in. To protect herself from being captured by the Agori, the Pishachini whispers one final, desperate secret into Aryan's ear, the Agori's own darkest sin. She reveals that the Agori murdered his own guru, a man named Brahmadut, and that the guru's spirit is still trapped right there in the jungle. The very curse that's been destroying Aryan suddenly becomes his only weapon. Breaking through the paralysis right in the nick of time, Aryan screams the murdered guru's name. The Agori drops the needle in sheer terror. Guided by the Pishachini, Aryan lunges forward and shatters the Agori's protective black agate necklace. And the second that protection is gone, the vengeful, trapped spirit of Brahmadut violently consumes the treacherous guru, right there in the pitch-black jungle. Aryan manages to survive the night and escapes the jungle, but the aftermath is totally irreversible. Looking in the mirror, he sees a permanent blue vein throbbing behind his right ear. It's the physical mark of his eternal bond with the entity. Over time, his business empire crumbles because of his absolute paranoia. I mean, he can't even sign a contract without hearing the lawyer's hidden deceit. He finally accepts his grim fate. He knows he will never experience love, friendship, or peace ever again. He is permanently trapped in an existence where every human interaction is forever tainted by the ugly, naked truth. Which brings us to a final, chilling thought derived from Aryan's tragic arc. The source narrative reminds us that while the illusions of society, politeness, little white lies, holding back our darkest thoughts, might seem fake, they are actually the very glue that makes human connection possible. So when you strip away those comforting illusions of human nature, is the naked truth really a superpower? Or is it the ultimate curse? Thanks so much for joining us for this explainer, and we will catch you next time.